The pattern of political officials and prominent figures getting suspicious packages continues, so we want to give you the very latest. First, the people the packages were sent to: Democratic donor George Soros, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, former CIA Director John Brennan, Robert De Niro, Congressman Maxine Waters, she got 2 packages, former Attorney General Eric Holder, Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Vice President Joe Biden were also sent 2 packages apiece. Now, law enforcement intercepted De Niro and Biden's packages this morning. In total, we're looking at least 10 suspicious packages sent to prominent Democrats and critics of President Donald Trump. President Trump tweeted this morning, blaming the media for causing anger in American society. The White House press secretary echoed that standpoint today.
Day in, day out, there is a negative tone. 90% of the media attention around this president is negative.
All right, so let's continue this conversation.
You might remember this. Back in March, people in Austin, Texas were on edge as a serial bomber mailed explosives to people.
And now there have been pipe bombs sent to current and former politicians and public figures.
With deliveries about to ramp up for the holidays, how do you know when a package is suspicious?
WFMY News 2's Hannah Brewer dug deeper to find the answer.
Well, you may be thinking politicians and public figures are the only ones that have to worry about that. This would never happen to me. But Greensboro police say it's important for everyone to be aware of what's coming to their doorstep. Bonnie Ferguson gets more than 20 packages a week at her printing company. She's always careful before opening one.
We order a lot of packages, and when they come in, we usually know that we've ordered them in the last couple days, so we're expecting them. So if something unusual came in, we would question it.
So how do you know when to question a package? Captain Renee Sigmund with the Greensboro Police Department says there's a number of signs.
Is there excessive postage on the package? Are there unusual stains on the package that might indicate some sort of liquid substance inside of it?
She says while there haven't been any recent reports of dangerous packages in our area, folks should be prepared for the chance of a copycat.
Sometimes when events happen, they may give somebody else an idea. We'd like to believe that wouldn't happen, but sure, it's a possibility.
A possibility that Ferguson is always prepared for.
You never know what's being sent.
Police say you should also pay attention to the return address, and if you spot something like wires hanging out, that's a pretty obvious sign it could be dangerous. If you have any suspicions, call law enforcement.